Domo! What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Manga Lounge, Jujutsu Kaisen edition. We've got chapter 127 this week, and I hope you're ready for some...
Please, everybody clap your hands. Come on, y'all. Check it out, y'all.
some claps, because we've got some serious Aoi Todo action in the building. Of course, anytime he's involved, it always just brings this dynamic to the battle that's just it's just so amazing. It just gets kind of so technical and so fun, like a dance, right? Of course, as it's called, Boogie Woogie. As always, I want to say thank you very much for all of you that spread that positive juju with a like and a comment, and if you choose to share with friends or family that are enjoying Jujutsu Kaisen as well, maybe they'll enjoy some Jujutsu Kaisen videos. I say let's just get right into it. Jujutsu Kaisen chapter 127 incoming. Here we go. Let's do it. All right. Hope you got a drink at hand here. Got a little bit of coffee myself. Because we're starting off with a couple of color pages here. This week, we actually have Jujutsu Kaisen on the cover of the magazine. Oh, I guess this side. On the cover of the magazine, as well as a few color spreads as well. And not more than a few weeks ago, Jujutsu Kaisen was on the cover as well. So obviously they are pushing the Jujutsu Kaisen agenda, and you love to see it as a fan. So the cover is kind of like a Halloween deal. So very cool, very pop colors and this and that. Although the fact that Nobara is on the cover, it's a little black humor, if you ask me. Maybe a little bit too soon considering what's going on in the manga. But of course, the reality check by Akutami Sensei with this Mahito color page. We've got Junpei, Nanami, and Nobara is in the people that Mahito has killed kind of group here. So it's obviously a very scary thought seeing her on the same page in the same company as Junpei and Nanami. Although, of course, as we kind of get into the chapter a little bit, there is that kind of glimmer of hope, and I definitely will be talking about that and holding on to that. So then we have this kind of 2-page color spread, and a little bit of research has landed me on apparently this background, this kind of like 8-bit video game looking background is from a video game series, dating sim series called Tokimeki Memorial. Tokimemo, kind of abbreviated. I'm not very familiar with the series, but it seems like it's actually quite a big series, so sure, why not? And apparently this scene specifically is from Ayako Confession. I don't know the details, but we see obviously in the video game, the person doesn't get shot. I don't think they do anyways. But we have Takada-chan on the other side. Yeah, and kind of at first, and then you have obviously this kind of great face of Todo and Yuji, kind of almost kind of like the he got turned down, hey, let's get some ramen's on me kind of deal. But Akutami Sensei being Akutami Sensei, and especially with kind of the it's slowly kind of coming to light that Yuji's ability perhaps his curse technique has something to do with kind of memory manipulation or something of the sort. I have a feeling there is kind of going to be another level to that. Like, it's not going to be that simple. Obviously, it never is with Akutami Sensei, right? So perhaps at first glance this is kind of a comical scene, but perhaps this is supposed to kind of have a little bit of a grander meaning as well, right? Just the same way as when Yuji and Todo first fought, you had that whole kind of like weird memory that didn't exist with them being classmates and this and that. In hindsight, it was actually a very like, you were like, what is this? So bizarre. But in hindsight, it was perhaps a very plot heavy scene, just the same way as when Yuji fought Choso, right? But again, that's a rabbit hole that I could go down for a long time, but I don't know what's right or wrong at this point, so I'm gonna leave it at that, and let's get into the chapter 127, Shibuya Incident, Part 44 now. And of course, Halloween right around the corner. We've been going on Shibuya Incident for a while, and it's been great every minute of the way. But we start off on page 5 here with, so Todo has kind of appeared and Nita has appeared, and Yuji not looking so hot. Obviously, he just saw Nobara die. And so he's kind of not groveling is not the right word, because that's kind of harsh for someone who just to say to someone who just has gone through what they have. But he mentions the fact that Nanami also died, and Nita immediately kind of recognizes this as well. So Nanami, obviously a famous name in the Jujutsu Kaisen community. We move on to page 6 here. And then, he's saying what I thought was my conviction was just an excuse. But then we have this kind of little phrase here, because of you, people will die. Remember at the end of the Yasuhachi Bridge arc, it kind of comes to light that the fact that Yuji ate the Sukuna finger kind of set off this chain reaction of kind of dormant Sukuna fingers, perhaps around the country, come to life, right? And then he felt the guilt about it. And remember, Megumi and Nobara realized it, but Yuji also realized it, but they're not telling each other that they realized it, because obviously Yuji, the fact that he ate the finger, people have died because of it, and he doesn't want to admit that, right, to Megumi. But Megumi and Nobara, don't want to tell Yuji because they don't want him to feel guilty about it. So both parties thinks the other party doesn't know. But then as Yuji's, kind of talking to Sukuna, as he realizes this, Sukuna tells him, because of you, people will die. So this is the line from that. I'm trying to think. I think Yasuhachi Bridge, end of the Yasuhachi Bridge arc, so it must be like chapter 60 something, 64, 65 maybe. But here we go. Mahito doesn't really care what Yuji thinks. So on page 7, he's coming in with his whip arm now. Of course, he's full of tricks. And then Todo clap. So right here, the first clap that we get is between Mahito and Nita. And of course, it's so great the way that Akutami Sensei draws these panels, right? You always kind of know what the positioning is. When Mahito is coming in here, if we were to have the camera from, let's say, Nita's perspective or something, then perhaps it wouldn't be as easy to tell how the switch happened. But the fact that on the same page, we have Nita and Mahito on one side, and then boom, they snap, and then we see them like that. It just kind of, with Todo's ability, you have to really kind of keep in mind how to draw the panels and stuff, right? So Akutami Sensei obviously aware of that, and then boom, he claps again, and then we immediately switch positions. Mahito and Yuji switch positions. Also, Akutami Sensei uses those little effects there too, if it's not as easy to tell. And then Todo, man, he's just going right in. He seems to be kind of a kick kind of guy, which, I mean, it's he punches and stuff too, obviously, but I guess it's a good kind of way to put in a little bit of variety. Especially Yuji, a very punch heavy kind of, Mahito of punch heavy, so it's kind of cool to see kicks kind of getting into the mix a little bit. But I like it because then he hits Mahito and he goes flying off towards Nita again, and then just the panels right above and below each other. And then, so I mean, it's just so cool. I love the face here by Nita as well. And there is one thing too that I, maybe now's a good time to kind of mention, the necklace that Todo is wearing. He was never wearing that necklace before, so we've never seen this necklace. And of course, Akutami Sensei's kind of attention to detail, that could be a big plot line. Plot line is maybe a little bit exaggerating, but kind of down the road in this fight, we could perhaps see that necklace come into action. Remember, Todo is able to make the switch happen with inanimate objects as well. Remember, he switched in the Goodwill event arc, he switched Yuji with the playful cloud, remember? So perhaps this necklace has a certain amount of cursed energy kind of imbued in it, and perhaps, you know, there's going to be a moment in the fight later on where, you know, it seems like all is lost, there's nothing to switch with or whatever, and then he's gonna have either like left the necklace somewhere, or he's gonna throw it or something without Maito being aware, and then he's gonna switch with that or something. So it could be a very I don't know, maybe I'm overthinking it, but you know, it's always kind of fun to play with the possibilities. And then on page 10 here, of course, Maito with this crazy face, and then you know, but he obviously talks about how disorienting this ability is. So simple, such a simple concept, but so disorienting and so effective in the right hands, right? And especially someone like Todo, who's physically gifted as well. And that's the thing, right? It's, you have to have a certain amount of reaction time to initiate the clap in the first place, and you have to have a certain amount of kind of physical prowess as well. If Boogie Woogie was with someone else, perhaps it wouldn't be nearly as strong, right? But the fact that it's with someone like Todo, who has that fighting intellect as well. Remember, he's a very, very smart guy. So it's always cool to kind of be reminded of how powerful this curse technique is. And then here we go, Todo with the wise words here, and I love it. You know, Todo, of course, quite the personality, but, you know, he came in last chapter with the Tale of the Heike kind of poem, and then now he's kind of laying down some knowledge here on Yuji, you know, telling him that you're a man amongst men. Don't limit yourself to such narrow-mindedness. Especially, you know, Yuji is very... the thing with Yuji is that he's very black and white, right? It's either you're right or you're wrong, kind of like this is right, this is wrong, and that can be a dangerous way of thinking as well. You see that a lot in kind of Shonen Jump manga, you know, the idea of kind of the protagonist saying, I'll never forgive this and this is what's right, but it's nice to have characters like Todo kind of put that perspective that there's some things that are a little bit gray as well, right? And especially with a series like Jujutsu Kaisen that's very how do I say, kind of a little bit more refined. I like these kind of moments here, you know. So he's saying that it's not just you know, we as one, we are all Jutsu sorcerers, we are an entity, and as long as there are those of us who live, those of us that have passed away will have never have truly been defeated. I love it. It's not about sins nor punishment. The moment we become Jutsu sorcerers, our lives cannot be limited to such misfortunes. Looking for meaning or logic in death can at times defile the memories of those we've lost. So remember, you know, Yuji very much, his whole spiel is about the fact that, you know, a proper death versus an improper death, and he's very much hung up on that kind of idea, right? But Todo is kind of telling Yuji here, and the reader as well, kind of indirectly, we can't get hung up on this idea so much, right? We have to kind of be able to read between the lines a little bit and focus on what's important. And what's important is Todo telling Yuji here on page 12, and I love this, what have you been entrusted with? Remember that, you know. You don't need to answer that right now, though. It's not an answer that just comes very easily. However, until you find your answer, never stop moving. And this is the hammering home right here for those of us who live as Jutsu sorcerers. That is the punishment we must endure. I love it, you know, the idea that for those of us who are Jutsu sorcerers that, you know, have to kind of live on with this, you know, with this curse almost of being Jutsu sorcerers, we have to kind of live with that. We're going to have to live with trying to find this answer of why we are Jutsu sorcerers, why we're doing this, and what have you been entrusted to do. Especially, you know, Yuji recently with Nanami or with Junpei, for example. from his grandfather. So he had, Yuji kind of starts to lose perspective, and the fact that Todo kind of is reminding Yuji, like, hey, remember, what have you been entrusted with? And what is beyond that as well, right? You have to find your own answer as well. So I love that. But then on page 13 here, now this could be quite the line here. It's a little bit ambiguous. It was meant to be very ambiguous, even in Japanese as well. Todo is just kind of talking to himself, thinking to himself, saying, now's not the time to tell brother about that. Which, it could be good or bad. There's clearly something that Todo knows. Maybe only Todo, maybe Todo and Nita. But clearly Todo knows something that Yuji doesn't, that he feels now is not the right time to tell him, whether it be good or bad. Maybe giving him bad news right now is not the best time. Or it could be a piece of good news, which he doesn't want to tell Yuji because it'll kind of break him out of this focus almost, right? He doesn't want Yuji to get complacent. But I don't know. We don't know what it means. Could be having to do with the other Kyoto people perhaps coming to Shibuya or already in Shibuya. I don't know. It's again, but it's the intrigue. This is Akutami Sensei storytelling, so great here. These little mysteries, kind of wondering, oh my god, what's going on? I find myself waiting for the next chapter, wondering what does he mean. But then we see kind of Nita also here. He uses his curse technique here, which it's interesting the way that he kind of does. It looks like a kind of an X mark almost. And then he does like a which is interesting because even in like Japanese culture, maybe other cultures as well, I'm not too sure what it's called, but I see it sometimes where, like if someone gets spooked or something like that, or kind of like in like purifying ghosts and things like that, on the back of someone you'll do this kind of like boom, kind of like, all right, spirit be gone kind of thing. So it's interesting, perhaps that is what it's supposed to kind of be a little bit of a reference to, especially with the nature of Jujutsu Kaisen being very much about ridding curses and things like that. So perhaps it is that kind of motif, the kind of who knows. But clearly Yuji, you can see something kind of snap into his face here. And then again, I like how Akutami Sensei kind of slowly unravels the mystery here of what Nita's curse technique is. So it was indeed, like I talked about last week, it is indeed a kind of a support ability, so it would seem. And I think perhaps that is kind of what Nita is limited to, if I'm honest, because even when you saw before, like when Todo switched him, and then he always kind of seems to be on the defensive and stuff, right? So perhaps Nita is not very comfortable with combat. He very much is a specialist and a kind of a support specialist in a similar way that Shoko perhaps is, but he's distinctly different in the fact that it's a cursed technique, not reverse cursed energy, and that's what we need to kind of emphasize here. And Akutami Sensei kind of gives you maybe like 60-70% of what the deal is with Nita here. He says, the wounds you've endured until now won't get any worse. They aren't healed, but the bleeding has stopped and the pain should subside. But that's only for the wounds you've suffered so far. So it clearly seems that once he applies this technique, there's a certain time limit, kind of a window, like, I don't know, maybe 3 minutes, 5 minutes or something, that any damages incurred within that time, it's not completely healed, but he can prevent it from getting worse, and he kind of hits you with like a rush of dopamine or something that perhaps kind of alleviates some of the pain. Because Yuji has suffered much of his damage within the last 4 or 5 minutes, right? And Nobara also not more than a minute or two ago. So perhaps the effectiveness is also kind of is directly related to the amount of time that has passed as well. Who knows how specific it could get? I mean, especially with Akutami Sensei, the powers tend to be very, very specific sometimes, like we saw with Naobito and his kind of like animation one, right? But yeah, but then he does mention the fact that, if you, on page 14, if you get hit again, you'll incur damage. So clearly there are kind of restrictions, like once he hits it, that's it. Like everything until then, within perhaps a certain time limit, is good. But if you get hit anything after that, perhaps like he can't use it again on someone within like a day or something like that. I mean, I don't know, again. But I like his little comment here, thinking to himself too, Todo's younger brother, they don't look anything alike. It's a little bit of that humor, of course. Akutami Sensei always great at that. And then he mentions, I've done the same for the girl over there, which obviously gets Itadori's attention. But then he does go on to mention that she has no pulse and isn't breathing. So, I mean, pretty much in a state of, she's dead. For all intents and purposes. But perhaps this curse technique will be the saving grace, which is interesting as well, considering, like, if we are to think kind of far ahead, that if Nobara does, and I'm sure she will, I mean, like, I really have to hold on to that hope at this point, that she will get out of it, that Arata here has effectively saved her life as well. And I'm not saying that they're gonna, like, it's a ship or whatever like that. I never really liked that idea of kind of like ships and stuff, just for the sake of it, but that there will perhaps be an interesting dynamic between Arata and Nobara as well, especially considering that they are both first years as well, right? Just kind of Arata getting mixed into the main trio of Fushiguro, Yuji, and Nobara, and we have Arata now as well. So he says, let's just say it's not a 0% chance she'll survive. Basically saying that the chances are very, very slim. So don't get your hopes up. Kind of telling Yuji and telling the reader as well. So it's kind of makes you wonder what that means, right? But again, like I said, if we get too stressed out about thinking, oh, she's not going to make it, then it could be a very stressful few months or however long until we see Nobara again. But, then he goes on to add on that as he's trying to get away here, that he's going to take Nobara and get out of there. And then Mahito, of course, he doesn't care. He doesn't care about time and things like that. And then he's got this crazy like net thing going on here, and I like how they have this little the clap here of Todo, just the hands kind of in between the panels, instead of just a full panel showing Todo clap. I like this kind of little technique here of showing just the hands in between the frames, and then get this creepy face by Mahito as he kind of like does this weird like morphing 180 turn, kind of quick turn. If you're, for the video gamers out there, that's the quick turn right there, right? Resident Evil and all that. But then Todo again with the clap, right? So it's incredible. I mean, you have to kind of consider Todo, as long as he's able to get those hands together, he's able to pull off this switch, right? Which kind of makes you worry too, like, okay, so if he loses a hand or something, all of a sudden his curse technique is gone, or can he, like clap his leg or his chest or something and that'll work as well? Like, what is, because he, up until now, he's always done this, right? But you never know, the whole idea between of Jujutsu Kaisen and kind of revealing curse techniques is that perhaps by revealing certain things, you also mislead, right? Like Nanami said, I can split something into tenths, but little did we know until, a few chapters later that he can also split, not just like the body length, but like the head length, arm length, and this and that. And Todo, perhaps he says clapping my hands is the trigger, but perhaps he only needs one hand clapping on himself or something like that. Who knows? So we have to kind of keep that in mind, right? But little snarky remark, of course, here. Don't want to touch me? What's wrong? He's good and then Machito saying, clearly noticing that Todo is also doing the best he can to keep him away from Itadori as well. And clearly Machito has it in his head here that Itadori is just completely out of it. As we see one of the kind of transfigured humans here. And then he still dodged it? Come on, switch, I'll figure it out, I'll guess right. And and Machito, just kind of the very childlike nature, right? He wants to get stronger and stronger, and he's enjoying it, right? He says, I want to do it again. I'm so close. I can feel it, the true essence of my soul. And of course, last time he said something along those lines, he also unleashed his domain expansion on Nanami as well, right? So we have to kind of wonder why Machito's not using his domain expansion, although domain expansion is has sort of been explained by Akutami Sensei that it takes up a lot of cursed energy, that once you use it, you're pretty much unless you're someone like Gojo, it's very difficult to be effective after it's deactivated, so it's kind of like a last resort. But then page 18 though. And then we got the Yuji, now this has to be, of course, Akutami Sensei, a big fan of Togashi Sensei. We've seen the connections and the respect, of course, and so this just immediately reminded me of Gon and the Saisho wa Gu. I mean, it's very much so, right? Like the fight between him and Gensuru. But then on page 19, you've got it from here, of course, the last words of Nanami. And then Yuji able to snap out of it. I'm sorry, Nanami, I was about to take the easy way out. I was about to use my sins as an excuse to run away. And then lands another black flash. And then this page on page 22. Yeah, this is the one that hit me, man. I'll be sure to take on your share of suffering too. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's so kind of, yeah, Todo reminding Yuji a little bit too what he's been entrusted with. He not to rely on just this kind of pure anger or whatever. Like he has to remind himself that there is, as the responsibility of a jutsu sorcerer that gets to live on, there is a certain level of punishment that they have to take, as well as responsibility that they have to remind themselves of, right? So of course, amazing panel. And then on page 23, yeah, I love it. Machito, of course, enjoying every minute of it, and then Todo just doing the Hulk Hogan, the welcome back. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, next week should be great. Next week should be very, very good. And of course, I also want to point out that Todo, I kind of always trying to keep an eye on this necklace just in case. You never know if he takes off the shirt and takes the necklace or whatever off too. But it seems like he's keeping the necklace on, so perhaps another hint that it is something significant. Something to switch with. Perhaps it's also something that he'll be able to switch, like it's a kind of a very special object that he'll be able to switch like with someone who's on standby too. Who knows? So it's something to keep an eye on. But yeah, man, not just week after week, of course, the up and down. Akutami Sensei always giving us the 1-2 combo, but letting us breathe a little bit too, and giving us something to cheer about. Amazing pacing, because otherwise if we're hit with too many punches, right, then we kind of get a little bit, it kind of becomes a chore to read, right? It's like you get too nervous, too stressed out reading it. So you have to have these kind of moments of triumph, small victories, right, along the way. Otherwise, it can become a little bit too much of a downer. But yeah, it just gets us excited, more and more excited to see what's going on next week. Chapter 128, which would be Shibuya Incident Part 45 if there's going to go with that naming. So perhaps they'll get to like Shibuya Incident Part 50. Who knows? Remember, we have to kind of remind ourselves that the time as well. It's probably roughly around 11:30 or so. So Halloween is going to be ending soon, right? So I don't know if Akutami Sensei is going to use that as kind of like a stop point or not, but if that's kind of gives us the reader an idea of how much longer we can expect, or they're just going to ignore that. But yeah, we'll see. It's but yeah, hey, I want to say, of course, thank you very much to all of you that stick around to the end of the video. Hope you guys are enjoying. I can't believe how amazing this series is, and thank you so much for spreading that positive juju. A little reminder for a like and comment and all that good stuff. But hey, we will see you next week, all right? Keep an eye out for some more Jujutsu Kaisen extra videos. I might have some merch unboxings on the way. But hey, cheers to you. You know how we do. Mata yoroshiku. All right.
待て、マイタ